The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program, and we've got a big show lined up, but I want to take a moment because I will never forget, and I'm sure Caleb won't either. It is the anniversary of 9/11, and Caleb, I still can't imagine what all of those people went through. So today is a reminder to all of those families. I can't imagine. You're in my thoughts and prayers. And when I say never forget, I mean it. I think it fades into the background of our comedians joking about it at times. It was terrible. Never forget. So, Caleb, we'll get to sports, but your thoughts on this this historic anniversary?
Yeah, it's honestly, it always stands out to me how surreal it was for me because I was a 13-year-old at the time, and I was in 8th grade, and I will never forget going into English class and our teacher telling us what was going on, and we thought he was giving us a project. We're like, what are you talking about? It seemed like a math riddle because he's like, a plane's hit the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center is missing. And I'm like, what? And it was wild.
My grandmother called me, said, hit the World Trade Center. I'll be honest. I didn't know what the World Trade Center was. I thought she meant like a small plane hit something in Knoxville. And then I got to the radio station because I didn't go to work till 10 back then because I was doing the afternoon sports talk with John Wilkerson and Jimmy Hobbs. And I saw usually there was a person or two outside the radio station smoking, salespeople usually. There were about 12 people just smoking cigarettes as hard as they could and some shaking. And I went into Jimmy Himes and I said, John Wilkerson actually was caught in Denver. He went to see a Broncos game and he couldn't get back. He actually rented a car along with a Tennessee fan and made it back to Knoxville. And I remember talking to Jimmy, and I thought it was very apparent we weren't going to have a show, that it was going to be all news that day. So I went to see my grandmother, and it was actually that day that I decided I wanted to have kids, and I'd never thought that before. So it's very momentous for me in a lot of different ways. But just take a second today to pray for those families, because you always remember anniversaries of those that you've lost, but even more so in a terrible tragedy like this. And just God bless those families. All right.
And before we dive in, I just also want to say it was also a really, really dark moment for the SEC and Roy Kramer that they tried to play football that week. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they were actually trying to carry on a football Saturday. You were covering them, so you probably remember that, Dave. They were going to try to carry on football Saturday when everything else was canceled. And the SEC was refusing to.
I would actually debate that, but I don't want to right now. I think there was a contention of bleep you to terrorists. We're going to live our lives. And I saw that point. But
that's
anyway,
fair. That's fair.
I just you're not going to affect us past Monday, even though, of course, that was a little juvenile of me, to be honest with you. All right. So moving on the program today, a Heisman breakdown, why Nico Iamaleava can certainly win the Heisman. Also, 5 balls to watch against Kent State. And this could be incredibly interesting because we'll also discuss, is Kent State the Vols' worst foe of all time? This day in Tennessee sports history, Deion Sanders channels his inner Butch Jones, but still has better hair. Cole Kubelik, who we love, of ESPN, talks about the offensive line a little bit later in the program. Stat of the day, Tennessee to face Oklahoma at night. Is that big or does it matter? And we'll have a special announcement coming up a little bit later from Zach Hare of Sports Treasures. He's got a big-time signing lined up. So a lot to get to on the program. Let's go ahead and start it with 4 downs. And as always, we're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
4 downs, 4 questions, 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Caleb, give me an update on the odds on the Heisman, and then I'm going to tell you who's really contending and will contend. It's on offthehooksports.com. We'll do this every Wednesday, and I'll tell you where I'm leaning with my Heisman vote. Now, when I actually cast it in December, I'm not allowed to tell you who I voted for. Oh, my goodness. And by the way, they really should move that to after the playoffs, right?
Well, okay, I always debate that because there is like a regular season MVP and a Super Bowl MVP, and it's like I kind of like that. Like I don't know, I still like putting some value on the regular season, but I've always been team regular season, as you know.
Yeah,
so
I do.
Okay. I'm pulling up the odds right now, but yeah, I do like I like regular season awards. That's just me.
No, that's fine with that. Okay, go ahead and click that like or subscribe button. And also on our YouTube channel, we would greatly appreciate it if you would take part in the poll question as what's your favorite NFL ball of the last 20 years? Eric Berry, Peyton Manning, Gerard Mayo, Al Wilson. Mine, I'll go ahead and tell you, is Eric Berry. I just loved the guy. I thought he was incredible. Caleb, I know yours is probably Al Wilson, right?
Mine is probably, I actually may go with you and go Eric Berry. I'm actually very close with Eric Berry. I lean Al Wilson for this reason. I don't think Al Wilson's NFL, I don't think his NFL career gets the respect it deserves. Everybody remembers him from college, and people forget that if Al Wilson was not playing in the same conference as Ray Lewis and didn't have a neck injury, we'd be talking about one of the greatest linebackers in the NFL of all time. He was that good, and everybody forgets how good he was in the pros.
I think that's fair. Okay, let's get to it right now. My 4 players that are the leaders projecting forward as well in the Heisman vote and the Heisman Trophy race. So the 4 players that I think are in best position to win the Heisman Trophy will be as follows. Cooper, what should people do in 4 downs?
The Dave.
Oh, Cooper. My goodness. All right, here we go. I'm on the wrong button.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, the 4 players that I think are in the best position to win the Heisman. First down, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
I got to go Quinn Ewers after beating Michigan on the road. Now, let me set this up before we get to Nico when you all ask him, tell me that Nico's far more talented. This is a combination of 3 things in my mind. What has happened to this point, which is just 2 games and not a lot of great competition. What I see moving forward. And then I'm a nerd. I was up at 4 a.m. watching film of all of these guys. So I think Quinn Ewers is in the best position because I think he's a leader. He's a big part of that team. Texas could win a national championship. So I've got Ewers number 1 in week 2.
And it's funny you say that because Quinn Ewers is now the favorite on FanDuel. Dylan Gabriel, who had been the favorite for 2 weeks, has completely fallen off, funny enough. He's not even in the top 10 now. And I understand your point. Quinn Ewers does have 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. I still don't believe in him long-term, Dave. And I know that's crazy to say, but I still think there might be a quarterback controversy before it's all said and done in down in Austin. And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think it sounds crazy. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But just as of right now, I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to win the Heisman. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. I don't think he's going to be in the top 5 or anything like that. But right now, I think he's number 1 in terms of positioning going forward. All right. I think what would happen, now you're referring to Arch Manning. What would have to happen there, Caleb, and I think you would agree here, is the season would have to go off the rails for him to get a shot. As long as Ewers plays above average, he's going to hold on to that role. It's hard to make a change mid-season when you're playing for a championship. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Quinn Ewers would have to lose the job, put it that way. But exactly. I'm not saying the season won't go off the rails. Maybe I'm leaning there, guys.
No, it might. Number 2, what down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Thank you. Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. I wrote in my column that the award has changed. It's not a running back award. It is usually almost always a quarterback award. 6 of the last 7, I believe. So it is 6 of the last 7. So it's a quarterback award. And if you're on the best team, that's helpful. I think Georgia right now, I want to see a little bit more, but I think Georgia is the best football team out there. So Carson Beck is in a premier position to win the Heisman. Plus, I know you don't like the TV deal, but ESPN is going to promote the SEC heavily, which will help the next guy I'm going to mention, whose name might rhyme with Rico. But what do you think of Carson Beck?
I mean, yeah, what can we say about Carson Beck? He's completing 71% of his passes with 7 touchdowns and no interceptions and has played a quality opponent. I mean, it's again, we talked about this yesterday. I still think Nico will be, and I think we both agree Nico will be better than Carson Beck at the end of the year. But right now, yes, Carson Beck belongs at the top of the Heisman race. He is putting up Heisman stats as a quarterback on what we all believe to be the best team in college football.
Agreed. All right. Why Nico can win it, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Right, I have this guy named Nico as my 3rd highest rated Heisman candidate based off what I think is going to happen this season. You've got Kent State, so I think his odds will even go up potentially after this week, especially if there's a stumble in front of him, and there might well be. This would be interesting, though, about Nico. What if the running game is so good and the defense is so good that in his big debut year, he gets overshadowed, a la, not comparing him to Stetson Bennett, but a la Stetson Bennett, who kind of was thought of as just around a great team and happened to stumble into a championship. Now, if you watch Stetson Bennett, he made a lot of plays in the clutch. So he's got a bad reputation as far as being an average quarterback. And I'm not comparing the two, far more ability. But what if Tennessee's that good and is running the table? Could it actually work against them if they do it defensively and with slightly lower scores? And by slightly lower, I mean 30s or 40s instead of 50s and 60s.
Well, no.
You can all out disagree with me if you want. Just call me you can call me an idiot.
Well, no, because here's why. Part of this is reputational. And what I mean by that is that, like, Stetson Bennett had the misfortune of also, one, Stetson Bennett wasn't the best quarterback in the SEC that year. The numbers didn't even back it up. I mean, Hendon Hooker and Bryce Young were better. And Hendon Hooker should have been in New York over Stetson Bennett that year. But then there's the other part of just the reputational fact that, like, everybody knows how Kirby Smart runs his program, whereas the way Josh Heupel runs his program, it's so quarterback-centric. The quarterback's still going to get more credit just because of the way people perceive the program. But, you know, you can be on those loaded teams and still go into Heisman. Look at Bryce Young. Everybody saw Nick Saban as a defensive coach, thought Alabama was loaded. They still gave Bryce Young the Heisman. I assume that was your Heisman pick in 2021, Dave. I could be wrong on that, but you know, they still
in 2021, Bryce Young was my Heisman pick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, in 2021.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that taking that into account, and again, he was at Alabama with a Saban program, and they gave it to him. So I think you can still win it when you're loaded elsewhere. I don't think that always works against you. Sometimes I think the opposite can be true. I think more often than not, when it comes to the Heisman, with the exception of Paul Hornung way back in 1956, people don't get enough credit for what they did given their lack of help a lot of times. Like Eli Manning should have won it in 2003.
True. Now, I'll be frank with you. I threw that out there. I think the offsetting is this. Josh Heupel wants to score points, and it matters to him. So Tennessee's not going to turn into a 24-10 bump you team, even if they could be. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And I would argue that they could if they wanted to be. Run the football, play defense. All right, what down is next, Coop, as I'll give you my fourth realistic Heisman finalist right now.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right, number 4, and then we'll get to some X factors and other dudes, is Jackson Dart. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. He hasn't played anybody. I don't know. He might not even be on the list next week, but, they play Wisconsin, I believe. So Dart's there. I watched a lot of him. I do think you could make an argument that he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, I'm not so sure that he isn't a better NFL prospect. I'll go on record first. I'm not sure he's not a better NFL prospect than Carson Beck. We also know that that Lane Kiffin, not Josh Heupel, wants to put up points like Josh Heupel, so the numbers are going to be there, right, Caleb?
Yeah, they are, but I can't, even though Lane Kiffin tries to put up the numbers, I can't ignore Jackson Dart's efficiency. I mean, this dude is he's completing 87% of his passes. He completed 93% of his passes against Middle Tennessee. And by the way, broke T. Martin's SEC record, completed 24 straight passes. Now, yes, it was against Middle Tennessee, but you have criticized that record, saying when they realized they were approaching it, they made a lot of easy screen passes. Jackson Dart threw for 377 yards. They were throwing it downfield. He threw it for 418 against Furman. I know it's against those two, but good Lord, Dave, those were insane stats.
Yes, very insane. Now, some X factors, and you can check this column out on offthehooksports.com. Miami quarterback Cam Ward, I just don't believe in him long term. Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. So Cam Ward's the hot one right now, but you don't win the Heisman in September. You don't even win it in October. And Jalen Milroe, I still have big questions if he's going to fit in Kalen DeBoer's system. Now, if either of these guys, if Ward continues on, if Jalen Milroe fits into this system against elite competition, then they're X factors, and they could be on this list in the next couple of weeks. But right now, I just don't know enough, because I know what Cam Ward did to Florida, but let me tell you something about Florida, Peyton.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
They're horrible. Okay? Horrible. All right. So I don't know what to draw from that. It's the same. What's that?
They just beat Samford.
Oh, yeah. It's really good. All right. So what do you think of Cam Ward and Jalen Milroe's possibilities of winning the
Jalen Milroe is going to implode. That's going to happen. Cam Ward, I'm actually pretty high on. I would say you should be worried about Cam Ward if you're a Tennessee fan, or if you're a fan of any of these other teams, and here's why. I could end up looking stupid. Cam Ward actually was leading my Heisman race through September last year before Washington State imploded. Mario Cristobal is still a terrible coach, but sometimes terrible coaches can land a generational quarterback and look really good that year, maybe even win a title or something like that, and then they're seen as great coaches. Dave, this could be Mario Cristobal's like Gene Chizik year.
With that, he's not as special as Cam Newton. Come on.
Cam Ward is I watched a lot of him last year, and I thought he was insanely good. And I just thought he had – now, Cam Newton didn't have a lot of help around him either, but let's be honest, Cam Newton had more help than Cam Ward would have had at Washington State. And, I mean, this dude is incredible, and he's playing in whatever you think of Cristobal's spread offense. He does run a good system for this guy in Cam Ward. I mean, it's a really good match made in heaven, man. I mean, it is.
Okay. All right. If you're out there in the Twitter land, be sure and retweet. If you see us live, it helps us grow the channel. We greatly appreciate that. And be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. That's just absolutely a must. We got to get you to do that. Thank you so much. Hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell to turn the notifications on, because again, we've got a huge monster announcement coming up, a partnership that we're really excited about that's going to bring you some fantastic content. So if you do not have the notifications on, just do it right now. Click the bell, and I promise you, you're going to get something that's pretty darn special. Let later in the show, we will talk to the one, the only Zach Hare, who owns Sports Treasures. And Zach does a great job at Sports Treasures. Over 35 years, over 5 million Sports Treasures there in North Knoxville. Follow them with that QR code on their Facebook page, and you'll get the latest. He posts like 6 times a day of stuff they got coming in. It's awesome. And thanks to Zach and Sports Treasures, we want you to take part in Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. Okay, so there's 2 things you can do. You can join for free, and you're registered as long as you're subscribed to this channel to win a Garmin watch worth over $1,000 thanks to Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Check out the Fire Opals, an affordable game day tradition. You'll love them. Then if you want to be a paid member, you get exclusive content, new recruiting story up to date, just $9.98 a month, plus more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun. And I'll put that right up there. All you got to do is join right there. We would love for you to join as we continue to grow that channel. All right. Caleb, we're going to get to, is Kent State the Vols' worst foe ever? But first, 5 balls to watch for Kent State. Now, you have a challenge because you could just say all the good players, Nico, James Pierce, blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious what direction you'll go, at least the audience should be, because I would think you would go along the lines of guys that can play in mop-up time, just at least a little bit. Which direction did you go, sir?
I went with the direction of Tennessee's matchup advantages, which players should play the best. I'm sorry. And the unfair part is, guys, every advantage is every matchup is a matchup advantage for Tennessee. But I would a little Nick Saban, we got to give our opponents the proper respect. What was it Nick Saban would always say? When he said that one time, when he's like, they run through our A like S through a tin horn or whatever.
I haven't heard that one. But let's get it started with number 5. We'll count them down, and I'll give you my thoughts on each of these players.
All right, number 5 is Keenan Peely. Now, Kent State has given up. They've given up 6 sacks on the year, and I think they've already given up in just 2 games, Dave. I think they've given up 19 tackles for a loss. But the vast majority of these come to linebackers. Their rush offense and the way that they run their offense, it basically screams for linebackers to make big plays in the backfield. So this could be a game where Keenan Peely starts to raise some eyebrows, even though nobody should raise eyebrows in this game because it's Kent State.
Keenan Peely is the 3rd most important player on Tennessee's team. Tell me I'm wrong.
There's Nico. There's Cooper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hit like and subscribe.
And then
I can't disagree.
Yeah, he's the 3rd most important player on Tennessee's football team. Number 4, counting down the players to watch against Kent State.
Dylan Sampson. Kent State gave up 145 yards on just 14 carries to Desmond Reed when they faced Pitt in the first game. We know what Dylan Sampson's been doing.
He's barely going to play. Be surprised if I will give you this right now. Over, under 49.5 yards. Would you want the over or the under for Dylan Sampson?
I'm taking the over because I think Dylan Sampson is going to get 49.5 yards on 2 carries.
Well, he could. But I will tell you this. I didn't buy it when you said that Tennessee was going to throw the SEC basketball tournament. Okay? I thought that you still have to go old school, play your hardest, do that sort of thing. But I wonder now if Dante Thornton is one of their receivers they'll lean the most on, or they just wanted to give him some play against Chattanooga. I wonder if they'll all but sit some of these guys as early as the 2nd quarter. That's how bad I think Kent State is. So I'm going to put it at 74.5. Would you take the over or under yards from scrimmage?
I'd still take the over. I don't think he needs 10 carries to get to 100.
Well, no, he doesn't need 6 carries, but I don't think he's even going to get that. So I'm going to go.
That's crazy.
All right. I just, we'll see, but I don't think that he's going to play much against Kent State at all. All right. Who's next?
All right, back to the linebackers, because given how many linebackers make big plays, I think Arian Carter's number 3. I think this could be a mini breakout game for Arian Carter, who could rack up some stats too. It'll be hard because you're right. Arian Carter is another player that they may be worried about injury, and he plays a position where he could get hurt, so they may pull him too pretty quickly.
No, I love this one. I think he's so fast and so smart that he'll make 2 or 3 plays before he gets pulled. I
see
think
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's that good. You still want everybody to be fresh. So you're going to run your starters out there, don't get me wrong, and you want them to be in a rhythm. But no, I think Arian Carter is the type of athlete that Tennessee has that Kent State, there's what? A dozen, 2 dozen, maybe 18 somewhere, athletes that they've never seen anything like. And he's going to be one of those guys. So I think he'll make a couple of plays. And I also think he's due. I think that Pierce will make a play as well, which I know I don't know. We're going to get to, I think, because I think Tim Banks wants to pay these guys off some for dropping into coverage, disguising things. And I think he's going to send them. I thought he did so against North Carolina State, too, with Pierce. All right, who's next?
All right. So you're saying he may want to give them a chance to get a few fun tackles in the backfield because he feels like they deserve it.
Give him some love. Give him some love. Send them. Nobody likes to drop back in pass coverage.
Well, speaking of this, and we just talked about the Heisman race, and Josh Heupel wants that, and he wants it for his quarterback. So I got Nico Iamaleava at number 2. Josh Heupel wants Nico. Nico's playing through the whole first half at the very least.
Hey now. I won't argue with that because protection will be good. I'll say 20 of 24 for 325 yards. Can you mark that down?
All right, 20 of 24 for 325 yards.
I think I've been on a hot streak. You know that, right?
No, you have. That is true.
And I hope he watches the show and he's listening. I had someone who has like 1 million followers on YouTube that's like a nuclear physicist that just happens to be a Tennessee fan. And he messaged me and he said, I just want to let you know I've followed everybody and you've been by far the closest. And so I'm like, hey, thanks. I'm usually horrible at that. All right, who's next?
Well, what are the chances before I get to number 1? Well, no, I'll get to number 1 and then I'll ask you this because we'll keep it on this topic. But number 1 is I think Josh Heupel. This game is about giving love stats wise to players who haven't had it yet but who deserve it. So Brew McCoy, this is his game. It was Dante Thornton in the opener. It was Squirrel White last time. And by the way, Kent State has given up over 100 yards to each of the each team's go-to wideout in the last 2 games, and that includes an FCS foe. So I think that this is the game for Nico to hit Brew McCoy for a few big plays.
Hey now. I like that one. See, I think Brew McCoy is a great selection, but none of these guys are going to play in the third quarter.
No, absolutely not. So what I was going to ask was, so Kent State, funny enough, I'll talk about this tomorrow, but they have they pass the ball a lot more than a lot of other schools. But what are the chances that them and head coach Kenny Burns decide we just don't want to get blown out of the building, so we're going to run the clock as much as possible?
Pretty good.
Now, what are the chances, honestly?
Yeah, I guess. I guess there's a chance of that. But the thing about Brew McCoy that I love is he's a great downfield blocker. I was watching highlights of Dylan Gabriel, and there was no downfield blocking. There were a couple of short little plays that with Oregon speed, with half a block, they could have broke. The thing I love about Brew McCoy is he's an A+, even if he doesn't catch the ball, even if he's not targeted, even, because of what he does when the ball's not in his hands. I would be interested, and I'll ask around who's graded out the highest combined, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Brew McCoy.
I think you're probably right. I
thought he ran one route kind of out of bounds. Do you remember that if he just stayed in bounds, he was trying to work the edge of the field and he stepped out of bounds? I mean, that would be I think an on him.
But he also he ran a beautiful deep route on the opening drive of last week's game that should have been a touchdown. Nico overshot him. And so, I mean, he is a heck of a route runner.
Yeah. Lance says, Dave, are you hanging out with Bill Nye, the science guy? No.
Bill.
No, I'm not. But I did ask Jack Hanna if Philip Fulmer was an animal, what animal would he be? And we'll have that Uncle Dave story in just, how about 2 minutes off the Hook Sports?
and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 24 Ford Maverick Hybrid, $25,515. 23 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,995. 24 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $59,757. Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Alrighty, we're going to get to Kent State, the worst foe in Vols history, but I teased this forward. It's my Jack Hanna. You remember who Jack Hanna is?
I know the name, but I'm not sure I know him.
He was the crocodile hunter before the crocodile hunter.
Oh.
He was the guy who showed up on the Tonight Show and would bring the monkey that would pee on Johnny Carson's head.
Oh wait, that's right. I remember this now because we talked about Jack Hanna. Did you suggest him as Tennessee's guest picker for College Game Day one time? Was that where we talked about him?
I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if Jack's still with us. But anyway, during the 2008 season, when things were going downhill, he came out and said publicly that he was for Philip Fulmer and that people should back off Philip Fulmer. So hit like and subscribe if you think this is a good story, because honestly, I had him on for one reason. So it was 8 minutes of blah, blah, blah. He's good. But the reason I had him on was for one question. It was a setup, like a twist of a M. Night Shyamalan movie. I said, all right, well, Mr. Hanna, I certainly appreciate your time. Oh, I did want to ask you one last question, if you don't mind. If Philip Fulmer was an animal, what animal would he be? And would you like to hear his response?
Yes, I want to hear it now.
A big old walrus.
That's so mean. Was he trying to say it in like a way like, hey, be proud?
Well, I don't know, but it was radio gold. And he said, and he's, I hope Jack's doing well. We're here. He's declining. But he said like a walrus will come after you. It's quicker and meaner. But the first thing you think if I were to be compared, and I've had a weight problem at times, if I were to be compared to a walrus, it would be that you're calling me fat, right?
That's exactly what you're doing. There's no way around it. If you call somebody a walrus, you're calling them fat.
Okay. Well, yeah, he was, Jack Hanna, everybody. We'll see if we can get him on. I'll reach out to him. Hey, reset our poll question. I'll see if I still have my number in his phone while you're doing that.
All righty. What do you want the poll question to be? What should we talk about? Well, let's debate. Because the debate's still going on. People are mad that some people. You changed the poll question. Okay.
Yeah, I changed the poll question. So reset that thing, and then let's just get. Okay. Yeah, he was a Knoxville native. Did you also know that the principal from Saved by the Bell, went to UTC? And if you look at his office, he has a picture of the basketball team from UTC in the background of his office.
Really?
Okay. Now we got to get moving to Kent State. But first, what's the poll question now?
It is based on the first 2 games. I have blank my preseason record prediction. Kept it the same, lowered or upped. 57% say kept it the same. 40% say upped. 3% say lowered. I'm in the 57%.
Okay. How about you? How about Caleb Calhoun?
Yeah, I'm in the 57%. I'm keeping it the same. I had 11-1 before the season. I still have 11-1. I still can't pick them over Georgia right now, based on what I've seen.
Okay. I picked 10. I'm 11 now, so I changed. But I'm going to stick with my original counts. That's the one that matters. So I'm not going to go back and be like Dick Vitale and pick 15 different teams that are, that's a Final Four team, baby.
And then when one of them is a Cinderella, he's like, I told you guys.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. It's what he does. This day in Tennessee sports history, before we get to Kent State being the worst foe maybe in the history of Tennessee athletics. But first, we'll go today's tough question, and we'll get your thoughts on Kent State.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Caleb, let's start. Why is Kent State so bad? For those that don't watch as much college football as maybe we do, why is Kent State so bad? I'll give you a couple of reasons because I've done some homework on Kent State. But why do you think that they actually could be the worst team that Tennessee has ever played?
It's twofold. Kent State has made, I think, far and away the worst hire in the history of college football in Kenny Burns. I think he's the worst head coach in college football. He was a running backs coach at Minnesota, took the job at Kent State, and I've told you guys this before, but I said 2 things. He said he doesn't want great recruiters on his staff. He said he wants great evaluators, which is part of recruiting, but okay. Right. And then he also said that
it wasn't with Butch, though. In all fairness, Butch would go by recruiting rankings. He didn't have a good evaluating staff. He was more happy. Either he was ignorant or he was more happy about a 4-star he had questions about than a 3-star he felt really good about.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to tell you that. He wanted to pretend he evaluated him. Okay. So, and then Kent State also, Kenny Burns said that he doesn't like to see the field from an analytical perspective. He's not a play caller. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know I do understand there are plenty of position coaches who have gone directly to head coaches and were never coordinators. But if someone says they don't like to ever call plays, that's a giant red flag. Even those guys would say, I could do that. Like, yeah, like any position coach to head coach would probably say, David, I would right, would say, well, yeah, I wasn't a coordinator, but it's not like I couldn't have been one. That's what they would have said, right?
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 really easy ways to determine that Kent State's historically bad. And that is their ranking in total offense and defense, which coincidentally is the same. There are 134 teams in Division I. So their ranking is the same on both sides of the ball, total offense and defense. Caleb, you want to guess what that is?
I do believe they're 126th in total defense. Was I close?
They're 126 in both, baby. So give them that. They're consistent.
That is some real consistency. Well, also, and let's just add this: they have, I kid you not, in their brilliance, Kenny Burns, the play caller he did hire for offensive coordinator is a guy named Mark Carney, who was the offensive coordinator to Will Healy's staff at Charlotte for 3 years, from 2020 to 2022. Never had an offense ranked higher than 91st. That's what Kenny Burns is like. That's who I want to rebuild this program at Kent State on offense, guys. Guys, they're horrible. Okay. They're horrible.
They are. So what's well, I'll give you this too. They got beat by St. Francis. I didn't know St. Francis had a football team.
That's the other point. And by the way, they weren't even close.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this. What's the worst team you've ever seen Tennessee play? Because mine's easy. I'll go ahead and throw mine out there. If you want to think about it, it's Louisiana Monroe, where Tennessee beat them 70-3. And I think I told the story yesterday that Philip Fulmer muttered under his, I may have said it off the air, so I'll repeat it. He muttered under his breath that somebody asked him about calling off the dogs, or did Kent State protect the punter band? He's like, okay, we could have blocked every one of those. So they could have literally lined up and blocked every punt. They could have held Louisiana Monroe to negative. I kid you not. They could have scored 100 points, held them to negative yardage, and blocked every punt. I'm not exaggerating. If they wanted to, if somebody told Philip Fulmer that he gets $10 million if you beat Louisiana Monroe by 100, he would have done that. So, Caleb, what are some of the worst teams that you've seen in Tennessee football history? As I remind you that Medicare Misty is registered in over 40 states. Free Medicare advice, and we'll visit with her later in the week. Caleb's worst teams and yours as well on the message board in 30 seconds.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, so let me ask you this. Is Kent State the worst of all time? And if not, who is?
All right, so I'll list the worst team I've seen them play to this point, and then I'm going to take on Kent State. But so the worst team I saw them play was one that we covered together, Dave. It was 2 years ago when Tennessee played Akron, where they took the low shot at Cedric Tillman. That Akron team, for those who don't know, was in its first year under new head coach Joe Moorhead, who is, I don't think is a bad coach, but was installing a new offense and was cleaning up a mess left by a very familiar name, Tom Arth, who was
Manning's backup, former UTC coach, thought he was the next Bill Belichick. Let me say something about that blowout against Akron, and you bring up a very good point. This is why you don't blow somebody out like Kent State. So somebody could say, you're not playing them next year. What does it matter? Those things get chippy, and that was a questionable shot when Tillman got hurt. So, Caleb, you don't want to get in a chippy contest where you hurt someone's integrity and character and embarrass them. Or some of their guys, out of 85 dudes, somebody's going to get dirty, and then you can get a player hurt and it affects your season.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Honestly, Heupel should have purposely tried to run up the score against Akron after that, though. Just tried to drop 80. But it was, that was absolutely brutal what they did to them. That was a really bad team. Now, but I'm going to go, and I remember that Louisiana Monroe game, by the way. That was Casey Clausen, the first time we saw action. And I'll actually never forget sitting with my brother because AJ Suggs Joey Matthews started the season, then AJ Suggs. And I'll never forget looking at my brother being like, I know it's Louisiana Monroe, but I think Casey Clausen's the best of these quarterbacks. And then he became the starter 3 weeks later. I think Kent State's going to end up being the worst team Tennessee's ever played, the largest gap. Now, I got a bit of history for you guys. The largest blowout win Tennessee ever enjoyed was back in 1914 when they had their first championship season, they went 9-0. It was the first year they beat Vanderbilt. It was the first year they won a title. They won the SIAA. They were led by Zora G. Clevenger that year. They beat Carson Newman 89-0.
How could you beat an in-state Christian school 89-0?
And back in those days when there was no scoring in football.
I mean,
what the?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A
You had to play
presentation
that?
of offthehooksports.com.
yes, I had to play that because that's in honor of my great-grandfather, who was the head pastor at Carson Newman for a number of years. There's a plaque hanging in his name, Reverend P.H. Hooker. So why are you taking it out on Carson Newman, for goodness sake?
They beat Carson Newman 89-0 that year. They beat Louisville 66-0 that year, and they beat Chattanooga 67-0 that year. But they beat Vanderbilt only 16-14. But that's a different take altogether. But yeah, no, it was a pretty big blow up. But Dave, should Tennessee go for the record this week? Should Tennessee go for 90?
Well, I'm going to put it as our poll question. So the record would be 90.
Yeah. Well, yes. If they won 90-0, they would be the biggest blowout in Tennessee history. Should Tennessee go for it?
No, because of the reason I just gave you. Some punk will. Every team has punks. Some punk will take a cheap shot and cost Tennessee a player for the remainder of the year, and you don't want that.
Pull your starters. You can still go for 90. Okay, you could put Navy Schuler in and go for 90.
Differentiate starters nowadays. I mean, Tennessee is really too deep. Are you talking about putting your 3 deep in there?
Yes,
and
yes.
Well, see, then they could score a couple of points, and I don't know why you would do
I don't think they can. Guys, they're a bad football team. Navy Schuler and Gaston Moore and Jake Merklinger, all 3 backup quarterbacks, would start on Kent State right now. This is a horrible team. Go for 90. Give your kids something to play for. Tell Nico, because look, you got to get him up for the game, right, Dave? So tell Nico and tell the kids, be like, hey, we're trying to go for 90 here. We need you guys to score a lot in the first quarter. Do it.
These dudes could be hung over and still beat them by 50. I mean, it is that bad. Okay, so I'll ask the question of our message board. Should the Vols run up the score against Kent State? Yes.
Oh, wait, phrase it differently. Should they go for 90 against Kent State? Should they go for the record?
Should the Vols go for a record 90? That is, Caleb, wouldn't that hurt you more in terms of the national media than it would help you?
Not if you pull your starters.
Do you think the media out in Oregon or the Northeast is looking at the fourth quarter to see who's in the game?
Who cares? Do it. Get your backups a chance to rack up some stats, man. You're playing the worst team of all time that you've ever played.
Okay, here are my choices. No, it will get chippy. Yes, I love it. And lastly, I'm going to add in there, no, it's just bad sportsmanship. So I am helping straw man, steel man, whatever the heck you used to call it. I'm giving myself a better opportunity because I got 2 no's. All right, so the poll question is up right now. Should the Vols go for a record 90 points against Kent State? Yes, I love it. No, it will get chippy. No, it's bad sportsmanship. Right off the bat, somebody says, yes, I love it. I'm going to say both. No, it will get chippy, and no, it's just bad sportsmanship.
I'll say this in your favor. Because people are bringing it up on the message board now, so we should just point out the elephant in the room. No pun intended, since he coached at Alabama. Nick Saban is an alum of Kent State. He is on ESPN now, and he does have a voice in the commissioner's ear. You think Nick Saban would take some revenge out on Tennessee if he could, if Tennessee humiliated his alma mater?
I don't know. I think you're reaching a little bit there. I mean, how would he take revenge on Tennessee?
I don't know. Maybe he's in the commissioner's ear and he's saying, hey, give Tennessee a tougher schedule next year. Be a little unfair to them.
I will tell you this, and we didn't play it, but his statement about the Vols carried a lot of weight. He said any SEC team is going to have trouble handling this team. And I thought he meant that. And he said that before the NC State game. I think he's very calculated. I also wonder a little bit if he doesn't want Kirby Smart to fail moving forward and not make a run at his championship record.
I mean,
out a little bit.
Don't the GOATs always feel that way? I can guarantee you that Michael Jordan has been rooting against LeBron his entire career for that. And I can guarantee you Michael's been rooting it. Tom Brady will root against Patrick Mahomes from here on out for the rest of his life because he doesn't want Patrick Mahomes to chase that legacy. And I think that's just what they do. You don't think, like, I will never forget when Mark McGwire hit his 60-second home run when he broke Maris's record, and Maris's family was all there, and they were trying to be very classy to congratulate him. But they're like, oh, my father's record's broken. And then we found out Mark McGwire cheated to break their record, so they probably feel even worse about it now.
Yeah, well, they feel good about it now because a Yankee holds that record, and that's Aaron Judge. So that's what makes it all better. Do me a favor, quickly hit that like and subscribe button. Deion Sanders channels his inner Butch Jones coming up. Cole Kubelik absolutely loves the Vols offensive line. He's an ESPN analyst, so we'll hear from him a little bit later in the program. Stat of the day and why I think that Tennessee playing Oklahoma at night could be problematic. Let's get to this day in Tennessee sports history, as this day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our fantastic friends at Asia Cafe. Asia Cafe, treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family secrets, 5 locations to choose from. That's Asia Cafe. And don't forget about that fantastic Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix Instant White Coffee. It is awesome. And it's been around since 1909. A Lim Dynasty right here in East Tennessee. That's Asia Cafe. It's right below. Go to asiacafe.org. This day in Tennessee sports history is Caleb.
Well, we got to send one quick mention because we talked about September 11th, and that did actually affect Tennessee football. For those who don't remember, Tennessee was to play Florida that week. Game was canceled, moved into the end of the year. Interestingly enough, Tennessee would have been the more banged up team had they played Florida that week, but they ended up playing Florida at the end of the year, and they were much healthier. And Florida was banged up because Ernest Graham went down, and
it was an odd day with people from Tennessee's program calling us to see what we thought about whether or not they would play on that Saturday. And it was touch and go until like Thursday morning.
It was
very touch and go. And let's discuss it for a second. My argument at the time, do you remember Haywood Harris by chance?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He said one thing I disagreed with one time where he said Kentucky's Tennessee's most exciting rivalry ever. I'm like, okay, come on now. But
okay. But Haywood went back a long time, and he was one of the sports information directors. And I just went on a rant on Saturday because I was just emotional and hurt by the week. I did Saturday Sports Talk, and it was my opportunity finally to talk about what happened on that terrible day of 9/11. And I went on a rant that you absolutely should play the games because they should not be able to affect our lives. Now, I see it a little different now, Caleb, and I was emotional at the time. So I don't really want to get into the debate of whether or not they should have played the game. But I will tell you this. I thought one of the nicest things that everybody's done, because I left the show going into the weekend thinking I may have just made a lot of people mad. Okay, but that's how I felt. And I get there, old voicemail days, and he had left me a message. And I love the way, hey, Dave. You know, he talked like that. And he goes, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate your stance on 9/11. And I'll see you at practice. And it was just one of the coolest compliments I've ever gotten. But clearly, Caleb, I think the country, the sporting world, was in a no-win situation that week. It was just something unprecedented and hopefully never happens again.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was very I don't think a lot of people knew how to handle it. I don't think we as Americans knew how to handle that. That was a very unique time. And it was.
Do you think that I'm being insensitive or was being insensitive by the fact that I thought all games should go on that weekend? I hope you don't think I was insensitive. I was actually
no. I think you have a very good point that you don't want to let them know you won. I argue the way, but and there's a fair point there. and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but like I was gonna, I think the way you let them know that they didn't win is you have the proper policy response to it as the federal government. And I don't know if it wasn't that weekend that was disappointing to me. I'm just going to say it. The reaction to September 11th by a lot of people was disappointing because I knew a lot of people who lived the next like 5 years in fear. And I'm just going to be honest. I thought it was the opposite of what you read about what America did after World War II with Pearl Harbor, where everybody kind of came together and said, okay, we got to go defeat fascism overseas. Whereas in this, there was a lot of, you remember it, Dave. I remember Halloween that year. I had some friends whose their family wouldn't let them go trick-or-treating because they were worried of a terrorist attack, which was just ridiculous. And you can't live your life like that because that is how you let them win,
All right. I'm going to put this up for just a second because I just want to, I'm curious. I think our audience is incredibly more educated than most audiences. I'll just tell you that. So I'll just ask you this. Should the SEC have played football after the Saturday after 9/11? And I want to hear your thoughts. It's not going to take over the show because we've got football to talk about, and I know you would rather do that. But we're going to put that up there. And then coming up here very shortly, we will dive into Tennessee, Oklahoma as a night game. I don't think that's good. And then Deion Sanders acting like Butch Jones. Stay tuned with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate that. And ring that bell for notifications. This is Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2023 Ford Expedition Limited 4x4 $67,950, 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor SVT $41,950, 2023 Ford Escape ST Line $28,940. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Our poll question, should the SEC have played this Saturday after 9/11? If you want to get in on that, do it now because we're going to move on. Never forget, I don't ever want that to sound cliche. Never, ever. So 81% agreed with Caleb, no, too much tragedy, and 19% agreed with me at the time. And that was, yes, don't let terrorists win. In retrospect, I second guessed myself, Caleb. If you If I had to make the decision, if I was the commissioner, I wouldn't play him. But at the time, I felt differently. So I'm willing to admit that.
And let's be fair, the reason it was a dark look was because it would have been one thing if everybody else was not playing, but like because everybody else was not playing and the SEC was playing, it all of a sudden looked like the way it came across, fair or not, to a lot of people was that Rory Kramer saw an opportunity for the SEC to steal all the ratings that weekend and get all the revenue because they were the only ones playing.
They should have had they should have had a press release ready to go as soon as the NFL decided, right?
Yes, exactly.
Wow, you're just out. Once you hear about the NFL, you're gone. Or you should be talking to them to know. And once they make their decision, you should make your decision. But if you want to vote on that, go right ahead. Changing gears a little bit. Deion Sanders might be channeling his inner Butch Jones. Can we pull up what he said? Deion Sanders, guys, is not a coach. He is a show. And there had been talk that Colorado wasn't allowed to play the fight song, and instead they would play Shedeur Sanders' rap. Well, he says that's not true. He could have changed his mind. However, the thing that you have to remember is that it was at least a topic of conversation. And it should have never gotten to that point. That's a sign that the media's doubting him. That's a sign that he's not going to survive long at Colorado. And I don't think he wants to. So when did you feel like Butch Jones, for instance, was absolutely done? Was there a moment, a press conference moment that you referenced, Caleb? And then we can pull that up as I remind you that we're brought to you in part by our good friends at Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Tell them that Off the Hook Sports and Dave said, hey, Bo. All right, so let's go ahead. We want to pull up first are we going to pull up the Deion clip first? Is that what we're doing first?
Yeah, we'll pull up the Deion clip first. Okay. And this was him addressing the media about the issue yesterday. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. Born ready.
Here we go. Now, again, this is him addressing the issue of Shedeur Sanders allegedly not wanting the fight song to play, but some rap song he did to play for him instead of that. So this is Deion addressing that report.
You have to recognize how incredibly absurd that this is even a conversation.
Yes, it's insane.
It's a sign that the program is totally, completely out of control. All right.
Whoever reported that I told the band not to play the fight song, that's idiotic. Y'all know that. Like, when you saw that, you know that was a lie. We got to start having some kind of accountability. I'm thankful for many of y'all that take your job and your craft serious. Please know that that stuff affects people. Me, you've been attacking me my whole life, so I'm good. I never wanted to get personal. So when it gets personal, you got to really think about that. You got to understand I have a huge platform. I could really get personal if I wanted to, but I choose not to do that because that's not right. Some things in life is just not right. And I don't want to go there and I won't go there. But think about it. Just my family alone, the platform is enormous. If we really wanted to go there, we could go there. But we would never do that. We weren't raised like that. We weren't brought up like that. We were brought up to love that neighbor as much as we can. Now let's continue.
Sounds like to me he was raised to threaten people, because that's exactly what that was. He was threatening the media. I will call you out on my platform. I have this monstrous platform. Well, they used to say in the newspaper biz, they buy ink by the bucket loads. And this just in, there's no limit to what you can write digitally. So those guys have pretty good platforms that work at the Denver Post or the Colorado whatever that cover this team. To me, he's completely threatening the media, which is something that Butch Jones did as well. He did it more behind closed doors. So Caleb's going to pull up the moment that he thought publicly that Butch Jones knew he was done, wanted to be done, felt like he was going to be done, and here it is.
Well, I'll tell you this. Football is an emotional game. It's a competitive game. The injury was caused not by a teammate. He landed on a helmet, and that's the truth. And I think we have to understand, what do we want out of our media? It's this place with the drama. And again, these are kids, and I think we all have children, and we're all adults. And are we focused on Tennessee football from a recruiting standpoint, from all the positive things we've done, from all the positive things this football program brings to the community, this great fan base? Are we in the reality world of TV? And I think all of us as human beings have to self-check ourselves. And you may not like that answer, but I'm a father. I have 3 boys.
Oh my gosh, that's all.
And I think we sometimes got to put ourselves in the role of a parent.
No, stop it. I mean, literally, he's a sociopath, okay? So I'm not going to listen to the rest of that. I'll just ask you this. Who's the worst coach, Butch Jones or Deion Sanders?
Or whose meltdown is worse? I would say...
No. Who's the worst coach?
Oh, who's the worst coach?
And that's going to be our poll question up next. And throw that out there on the message board. I mean, if Deion Sanders didn't bring in his family and a guy that he made rich and Travis Hunter, they're not doing anything. They might be 0 for their last, how many games have they played? 14.
Well, so before I get to my case, and I'm going to add this at Deion.
There's no question that Deion is the worst coach.
Well, and guys, I want to be fair on this with Dave and I. We both we're not like those old fuddy-duddies like Deion will never work. Weren't we both like, let's see how it plays out. Let's see what happens in Colorado last year. We gave it a chance, right?
All he had to do was be Ed Orgeron. Go hire the coordinators, let them do their job. I think what's happened, yes, we're not just jumping on the bandwagon. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Deion created a terrible culture. I actually think he has good coordinators, but he has a terrible culture there. And now he's melting down because the culture is getting away from him. And the truth is, for him to say like, oh, it could get personal and I don't do that. You took a shot and laughed at the production of a former player last year because you didn't like what they said publicly about Colorado. Like, again, this is when I turned against Deion. The moment I turned was when he started making fun of former players on Twitter who were at other colleges. What coach makes fun of the production of college athletes?
I don't know.
And
That's
so
odd. I mean,
that was Deion has the worst, but long story short, Deion has the worst culture. But I was so close to the program covering it. I still say Butch Jones is worse.
Yeah, I don't think it's close. I don't even think Deion Sanders is a coach.
I don't think Butch is either, though. So I mean, we're kind of like Butch knows one thing well, which is the zone read on spread running plays. But gosh, it's
a sideshow. But it got to be that point with Butch Jones too, didn't it? When you had the rapper, was it Lil Wayne, Little Bob, whatever his name was?
Oh, please, like he could ever get Lil Wayne. Like Butch Jones could ever get Lil Wayne.
Who was on the sideline? Who was the dude? The rapper.
Lil John.
All right. Should have gotten a little dicky. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK. That's HOOK for 10% off. And there are some parallels, as we pointed out. It's kind of like Deion is grasping at straws, going after the media. And that's an indicator to me, as was what Butch Jones said way back then, that he's worried about the wrong stuff. Do you think Nick Saban cared that he got ripped in his, second game at LSU? They lost to Law Tech, I believe.
UAB.
The next week
they upset Tennessee.
Right. The next week they beat Tennessee. Do you think he was preaching to the media the week before the Tennessee game about how he was being mistreated? Caleb, no. I mean, that to me, your focus is totally in the wrong place.
Well, and here's the worst part. And this is the interesting part about that. One, the answer is no, you're right. He did not think about that. But two, the biggest snake move here's why Butch Jones's meltdown was worse. Butch Jones, one, Butch Jones told a way dumber lie. Let's just put that out there. I mean, it is possible that report on Deion Sanders wasn't true. And he could have just said, not a true report, let's move on, rather than meltdown. But at least Butch Jones's lie was so obvious. For those who don't remember, that was about Shy Tuttle, who allegedly got into a fight with Darrell Taylor and I think needed stitches. And Butch Jones says he landed on a helmet.
And he said, that's the honest truth. Whenever somebody says that's the honest truth, they're lying.
They're straight up lying, yes. So Butch Jones's meltdown was absolutely worse than Deion's meltdown right there. And now, I don't know who the worst coach is, but Butch Jones's meltdown was worse because it was such an obvious lie. And
did I tell you, have I ever told you that in hopes of being the best reporter I could be, that I studied pantomimes when people are lying. And I'm pretty good at it. And he lied all the time. He's pantomimes. I'm not going to give them out, but his pantomimes were so easy to read. I knew it. It oftentimes I would use the quote, but it tipped me off that something wasn't going well somewhere else. Like, oh, our offensive guard position is really good. And there was a little thing he would do. I knew when he was lying, and he lied all the time. If you think he lied 50 times, Caleb, he lied 500 times. He lied 10 times more than you think he did, whatever that number is.
I believe that. And it got so clear at the end. And it was, and the thing that was so gaslighting about it was that, like, he tried to make the media feel like they were attacking his players. And it was like, no, they were asking about a fight, and then you just lied, and then you lecture them about how this is the thing coaches do, Dave. They pretend they're protecting their players when really they're just mad about what's being written about them. You ever notice that? Like, I'm a father and I have children and I'm thinking of the family. Oh my gosh, I'm just so sentimental. It's like, no, you're mad and you're melting down because of things being written about you and you can't handle the pressure because you can't stand the heat. Okay. And that's what happened.
All right. So who's the worst coach, Butch Jones or Deion Sanders? Deion Sanders leads right now. Red Rum Man, thanks for watching. I appreciate that. Deion Sanders has the lead over a Tennessee fan base. Does that surprise you, Caleb?
It doesn't, because I think Deion Sanders has Deion hasn't, okay, this is weird to say, but he, like, Butch Jones, when things were going well, somewhat came across as a coach, like acted like a coach a little bit. Like Deion has, this is what we said was going to happen, man. If you were that, now again, I just told you guys on Monday, the Deion thing, I wasn't totally off the train. But when you melt down in front of the media, usually that's the first sign that the wheels are coming total. Here's when the wheels are coming undone, Dave. Two things. When a coach melts down in front of the media, and here's the next step. You ready for this? In about a week, we're going to hear about all the death threats Deion's getting. Because the minute a coach complains about death threats, that's when you know they're struggling, like Jim McElwain style.
You ever gotten threatened?
Yes, I've gotten death threats.
You ever gotten threatened from a coach's son?
I think I know the coach's son you're talking about, and I'm going to stay quiet on that.
Yeah, I think you probably do. The stat of the day is brought to you by our friends at Work Trucks. And let me tell you something about Work Trucks. Work Trucks is all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that helps you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks, you see them right there with the Napod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you. Contractors, get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham for the entire inventory. Go right there. Online, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com. Why risk chancing your future and business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? They fit your needs to a T. Work Trucks, proud supporter of the Tennessee Vols. How many years did Butch Jones last again for?
5.
And
And
this is Deion Sanders' what season?
Second year.
Okay, so it would be a stupid question to ask you who lasts longer, because Deion's not going to make it to 5 years.
Even if Deion were successful, he wouldn't last longer because he wouldn't stay in Colorado. Honestly, now here's who's more disingenuous when they talk about their love for a place? Who's more disingenuous when they talk something up? Butch Jones or Deion Sanders? Who's a bigger snake oil salesman?
Push. All right, give me the stat of the day. What do you got? I mean, really, truly push. One is, well, maybe Deion's better at. I don't understand why Jalen Hurd came to Tennessee still to this day. Part of the reason was, Alabama coach Nick Saban sat down and told him, he said, "You're a defensive end." And that's when he ruled out Alabama. Jalen Hurd might still be playing in the NFL if he played defensive end.
Oh, absolutely. Nick Saban was looking out for his future. I mean, it's
I believe that that Butch Jones was paying him for his future. All right, Caleb.
Also, I'm going to defend him. Jalen Hurd had good parenting can be very important.
Yeah,
to having a successful career. And his mom would talk so much trash about players on the team.
Crazy. All right. If you needed somebody crazy,
I'm your huckleberry.
There she was. Stat of the day. What do you got?
Stat of the day is the last time Tennessee played a MAC foe was the breakout game for Jalen Hyatt. They played Akron in 2022. We talked about Akron. Cedric Tillman went down. Jalen Hyatt had 5 catches for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that began his long march towards the Biletnikoff Award, which he would win later that year as Tennessee won 63-6.
Good stuff. All right, it's time to bank on it. Bank on it is brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. Caleb, bank on it. It's not good that Tennessee's playing a night game, which was announced this week at Oklahoma. They would much rather that be a day game earlier in the day. I think it even affects the spread by a couple of points. I still like Tennessee to win, but I've gone to road games in those situations in which you can be walking into a buzzsaw. The crowd has a frenzy to it, and there is a little bit of a history with Tennessee and Oklahoma. So I think it's a bad thing. Bank on it. Tennessee playing at night is not good for the.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, Caleb, what do you think? Night game bad for the Vols?
Let me bolster your point and then unmake it and then tear it down. How about that?
Let's do it.
Just build you up. All right, so a couple points. We know Tennessee has had some issues on the road. They were 1-3 last year. There was the South Carolina debacle 2 years ago. We also know they're worse at night because of how early in the morning they practice. And so the combination night road games are the worst for them, which is why they lose a game like Florida last year. This game is different. This game is different for so many reasons, guys. Let's point out that the Florida game, they had Cooper Mays injured. The South Carolina game, there was the Jeremy Banks fight. So you can kind of say, okay, you can see how those could have happened. There's none of that this time. Assuming everybody stays healthy, they're going to go into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's going to be the nervous one because they just barely beat Houston 16-12. They're worried about the state of the program under Brent Venables. They don't think, I know this, Dave, there is hope in Oklahoma that Brent Venables can keep this thing going, but they're not sure. They're much closer to me and you than and not believing him than people think. And I always say this with a head coach. I get it. They usually have a great season by their second year, but don't you almost always know for sure after their first year that they're going to work out? Like if they're going to work out, for sure after the first year.
Well, not for sure. I mean, Deion won more games than I thought he would. Not to go back to him, I don't want to. In year one, I wasn't for sure. I would disagree with that.
He went 4-8, so you weren't for sure. I'm not saying you're sure of what a coach is going to do, but look, put it this way: Josh Heupel, when he won 7 games, I knew it was going to work out. I knew immediately that he was going to work out after winning 7 games in 2021.
I knew it was going to work out from a lot of people I talked to behind the scenes, his presence, his play calling, and all that. So, I would say this: work out or be a good coach. How about that?
That's fine.
It may not be a good fit there, but usually I feel like after a year, I can determine if a guy has the mental acumen and the leadership abilities to be a good coach. So I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess where I'm at is that it's year 3 with Brent Venables and they still don't know. That's a red flag. By year 3, if you don't know, that's a red flag, and they still don't know it by year.
Yeah, I think they're in a weird position right now. And Tennessee has been that with Dooley, Jones, Pruitt, that year 3, you're hoping that's your hope year. You're either hoping for one of 2 things: that he turns out to be a winner, or he turns out to be a complete bozo and you're replacing. You just don't want the in-between 8 wins, which I think
you don't want the constant 8-4.
Right, which is what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to win 7 or 8 and just kind of be there for another year. And then next year win 7-ish and be there for another year. So they're in the hope year.
And that's what's creating the mood at Oklahoma right now, which is not a good mood for the fan base to be in. Then you couple that with Josh Heupel going back home. Guys, he won't say it, but Heupel takes some things personally. And if there's anything he takes personally, it is the firing that Oklahoma delivered him. And I guarantee you he's been circling this game. And I guarantee you he circled it when the schedule was made last year. And I'm not so sure he won't pull an Eli Drinkwitz from Tennessee last year, Dave, and just switch up everything he does to throw them off, just to absolutely obliterate them. And he's going to want to run up the score. And also Heupel has an incentive. Heupel actually takes 2 things personal. He thinks he was wrongly fired, and he also thinks he should have won the Heisman over Chris Weinke in 2000. And
by the way, we had Jimmy Imes on, and he's going to join us on Friday. We had to move him from today. He's usually our Wednesday guest. But did you hear the story, or this may have been in between me and Jimmy, so I hope I'm not sharing anything. But yes, he does still remember that, because he asked Jimmy when they were talking about the Heisman Trophy. He said, he asked Jimmy, he goes, "Did you vote for me?"
That is intriguing. That is intriguing. Yeah. Jimmy, I mean, Heupel thinks he should have won it. And I think Heupel takes it.
Jimmy said yes. And I said, "Did you really?" And he goes, "We're not going to discuss that."
I mean, to be fair, Michael Vick should have won the Heisman that year. Chris Weinke nor Josh Heupel should have won it. It should have been Michael Vick.
Well, okay. Nevertheless, Josh Heupel likes to grind axes in his off time.
Yes. Yes. He has a Heisman caliber quarterback this year that he wants to turn into a Heisman winner. He wants to get back at Oklahoma for beating him. Oklahoma is concerned about Brent Venables. The fan base is not as excited as they should be. And they are massively banged up on the offensive line, facing a Tennessee team whose we all now believe sole strength is the defensive line. That a lot of people think that's their biggest strength. Everything favors not just a win for Tennessee, but a blowout win for Tennessee. And I think Josh Heupel is going to try to turn Nico into the Heisman front runner against Oklahoma. That's his goal in that game. And that's why I'm not as worried about this if I'm a Tennessee fan as I would have been in previous games. They were holding their nose against Florida last year because it's Florida. You're like, oh no, please don't mess this one up. And then Cooper Mays is hurt. And so there's just a lot of things that happen. I think they're ready for this game. And
but my bank on it is the night game hurts Tennessee, brought to you by Commercial Bank. So does it hurt, help, or have no effect?
Help. Typically, most of the time it hurts. Most of the time you are right, it hurts. They don't want to play at night. They don't want to play on the road. This time it helps because they know the whole world will be watching and they want to make a point. They're the only top 25 caliber game that week, I think. Michigan, USC, but Michigan shouldn't be a top 25 team. They want to make a point.
If I didn't know this opponent, if this were the first game of the season, I would say it would hurt them. It would hurt Tennessee. But Oklahoma's offensive line is such an injury-riddled wreck against what I think is one of the best defensive line groups in the nation, I'm going to go with no effect. I think that game's going to be won right there, and I'll go ahead and predict it right now. They're going to win it up front. They'll be super fresh because they have to play Kent High School, and Tennessee will dominate up front because of injuries.
I totally agree. And also because they're seasoned SEC linemen going against linemen used to blocking in the Big 12. But that's another
they might dominate if they were totally healthy, but they've got all kinds of injuries. I think when they play their third center.
And now, I want to address two things. Tennessee has won 2 night road games in 3 years. Both of them were at Kentucky. So you can take it with a grain of salt, because I know you're going to be like, well, it's Kentucky. Like, Tennessee could be 0-12 and they'll still beat Kentucky, and Kentucky could be 12-0. I mean, yes, Tennessee does always beat Kentucky. They do have, I know it was at noon and 11 their time, but they have that 40-17 win at LSU, 13 win at LSU in their back pocket from 2022. So they do have quality road wins, and they have quality road wins at night. The question becomes, this would be their first quality road win at night against a team not named Kentucky. But I think they can do it, and I think they're prepared for it. And I think that put it this way, Dave, if they don't do it, then it is official. Heupel on the road's a red flag.
If they don't play well against Oklahoma, you can always lose against a quality opponent. Things might not go your way. But if they don't play well, yes, I would be concerned. I wouldn't necessarily be concerned if they lost, but I think they beat Oklahoma. But if they didn't play well, I would be surprised. Now, the other factor is, as tough as this football team is, likes to run the football, likes to play good defense, and Josh Heupel hates hearing this, they've got some glitz to them. So these guys might really get excited about playing under the lights. That might be a motivating factor. That's something that I'll ask some former players about, because this offense could shine under the lights. And here's the other thing. Oklahoma's had to show to some extent what they do. And they're limited in what they could do because of injuries, but they've had to show what they can do because they've had a close game. Tennessee hasn't had a close game. I don't know if they're going to go out there in double tights. I doubt it. Or if they're going to go out in 4 wide. I doubt it. Or probably just their usual 10 personnel, which means running back, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. I think that's what they'll do. But if I'm Oklahoma, what do I prepare for? And Alec Eberle, Tennessee's tight end coach, if you didn't read that story that I wrote, he deserves some love because he got all those guys ready. And he said Jacob Warren, who was on the program yesterday, was a major part of building that chemistry in that room. But if you look at let's think about this for a second. You have a guy from Alabama who could barely get on the field, I think had 3 catches after junior college. You had Holden Stace, which you would think would be good, but more probably a blocking guy. And then you had Ethan Davis, who just turned 20 this summer. That's what he had staring at him. One guy that kind of knew the program but was young and needed to develop physically, and 2 guys that didn't know the program at all, didn't know the offense at all. Alec Eberle deserves a lot of love because Kirk Herbstreit said this during the broadcast. He said, Josh Heupel told me, if we're really good at tight end, we're tough to stop. I think it's the evolution of this offense. Eberle said yesterday the reason they didn't do some of that last year is why? It was lack of depth, Caleb. They didn't have 3 guys. And the previous year, they didn't have 3 guys. They had 2 guys, and if one gets nicked up, then you only have 1 guy, and you can't rotate from possession to possession. So it makes total sense, and they've done it before, the double tights look, but it makes total sense why that was the game plan and could be the game plan moving forward, because they've got 3 tight ends they think can play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we always know Heupel loves to use tight ends in the red zone. He's always been trying to do that, and he just hasn't had the situation yet. He's finally got it.
They did in the middle of the field to start the game.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a great point. And they should have had another touchdown pass to a tight end. that was called back from a illegal block, not a illegal block, excuse me, an eligible receiver downfield. I know you weren't a fan of the call. I understand that. Look, there's a lot to this. And I want to go back to just how below average Oklahoma is. I mean, also, people are bringing it up on the message board. They lost Jeff Levy. Y'all know how high I am on him. He's at Mississippi State now. Seth Littrell's our offensive coordinator. I mean, okay, Littrell had one top 10 offense ever, and it was 2015 when he was at North Carolina when they were in a really, really bad ACC. But outside of that, Seth Littrell's never really been a special coordinator the way Jeff Levy was. So we're looking at that and we're thinking, how does Tennessee not dominate their offense? Their offensive line's banged up. They have an offensive coordinator in his first year, not in his first year as a coordinator, but in his first year at Oklahoma as a coordinator. And I mean, and he's also just not anything special. Shouldn't Tennessee? I mean, aren't we speaking ourselves into the idea that shouldn't Tennessee win this game?
The Oklahoma game?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think they're going to be 10-point favorites.
You think they'll be double-digit favorites?
On the road. And by the way, I've been closer than you because you had North Carolina State as a 16-point dog before the number came out, if I may remind you.
I did, but
I said it would be more along the lines of 8 or 9. And where did it end up?
It ended up at 10. It ended up at 10. That's true.
Thank you. All right. So
Dave has context though with the program that I don't have, so this isn't even fair. You told me last year. I'll never forget when you told me you were like, you told me before Vegas did what the line for the South Carolina game would be. You just were like, you had enough inside sources. You're like, they're going to beat the brakes off South Carolina.
Yep, I'm pretty sure about that. And so I appreciate that. I'll take the shout out. A little love as coming up. We're going to have, what do we have coming up? Oh, Cole Kubelik. Where does Cole Kubelik rank among your favorite analysts?
Oh, he's in my top 3 because he's one of the few that just straight talks ball, that just loves to talk ball.
Yep, I absolutely love him. Give us a minute. Cole Kubelik. We'll break down Tennessee's offensive line, and this just in, it's very good. Give me a minute off those sports.
Looks a little fuzzy to you? You may want to consider LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Now with 2 Sevierville locations to serve you, East Tennessee's best eye care is more convenient than ever.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Welcome back with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. If you're looking for Jimmy Himes, he typically will join us on a Wednesday, but now on a Friday. So update us with the poll question here. And coming up, the last look, we'll talk about Cole Kubelik. That's right, Cole Kubelik's thoughts on Tennessee's offensive line. So, Caleb, say something insightful.
Well, the poll question: the night game against Oklahoma, blank the Vols. Helps, hurts, has no effect. 62% say has no effect. 24% say helps, and 14% say hurts. So, even though Tennessee has been struggling at night in the past, and even though Tennessee has been struggling on the road, the fewest amount of people think it actually hurts them. And I think we understand the dynamics. Many of us looking at this understand the dynamics of the game and say that it either has no effect or helps them this time around.
All right. So tomorrow we'll be joined by Will West, and we'll talk about that. Talk about this topic a little bit more. I think we put that up on the poll question. Did the first two games affect the way you look at Tennessee? So here's some thoughts from the contributors at Off the Hook Sports. Will says, I think Tennessee goes 10-2 now, and I had predicted 9-3. Jimmy Himes said, yes, I picked Tennessee to win 9 games, leaning towards 10. Now I'm at 10 because the defense is better than I anticipated. So we've got some feedback, and we'll turn that into a column that you can read at offthehooksports.com. For the record, I'm kind of like Jimmy, except a game higher. I'm 10, leaning towards 11. So if I had to bet a mortgage on it, as people used to make fun of me for saying, Caleb, I would have to take 11 if you made me bet on it right now. If I made you bet on it right now, what would it be?
It'd be 11. But guys, y'all. I would like to welcome all of you guys to where I was back in 2022, because in the middle of 2022, I said 2024 is Tennessee's magic year. That's what they're prepping for. That's what they're putting everything in place for. And guess what year it is? 2024. So I predicted this 2 years ago, and now people are like, 2 games into the season. Well, oh man, Caleb Calhoun was onto something. He's really bright. No, they're not. They're just agreeing with what I said now and not giving me any credit.
I'm just going to simply put it right there. I'm going to put it up as a poll question. If you had to bet your mortgage on it, Tennessee will win 11 or 12 games. 10 or 11. 10 or 11. I'm sorry. This guy we love visiting with. I've told you before, Sports Treasures, if you haven't been there, I know we had somebody that drove in from the Tri-Cities to check it out, but what you really need to do is follow them on Facebook, and I share a lot of their stuff because they're constantly putting out fantastic memorabilia, not just Tennessee related, but boy, they got plenty of that. Zach Herrick joins us now from Sports Treasures. Zach, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about you guys?
I'm well. Let me ask you this question. Tennessee is 2-0, a combined score of, I think, about 1 million to -4. So Zach, let me ask you this. Has it affected your preseason prediction of what Tennessee would do? What you've seen now?
I was always kind of at 10-2, but now if I had to say 10, I would have said Oklahoma, NC State, those guys were toss-ups. I feel more confident in 10-2. I think now if it was 9-3, I'd be disappointed. Whereas a month ago, you'd said if we went 9-3, I'd be like, well, not horrible, But I think now I would be disappointed at anything worse than 10-2.
Gotcha. All right. So on poll question, as a matter of fact, 73% of the people say, hey, Caleb, do you need to get that? Okay. If you had to bet your mortgage on it, Tennessee will win. 10%, 76 of the people say 10%. For 24 say 11. Now we can talk basketball for a second. I'm never afraid to do that. You have a very special event coming up with a very special basketball player that could determine just how good the Vols are. So kudos to you for landing that. Yep. Tell us about what's coming up.
Yeah. So Saturday the 14th is it's kind of a larger event with some things going on inside of the one event. It's Tops is doing their Rip Day, so we'll have prizes, giveaways, people bring their cards in, trade, all that kind of stuff. But in that, we're going to have 2 different athletes at the shop. So from 11 to 1, we're going to have Erica Conley, who is an Olympian, She'll be here with her medals from the newest from the past Olympics, taking pictures, autographs, things like that. And then from 1 to 3, we're going to have Chaz Lanier in the shop. He was one of the bigger coveted transfer portal guys out there in basketball this year. If you look, his numbers were very similar to Dalton's last year at Northern Colorado, but Chaz was playing it on a much larger, better competition than Dalton was at Northern Colorado. So I think, like you said, Chaz could have a lot to say with how far the team goes this year and what they do offensively.
Yeah, and Connolly brought home Olympic hardware for the 3rd time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
she's a Vol too. She swam here back a few years ago.
Yeah,
at UT.
yeah. So that is that's super cool. And again, sometimes you do pre-sale tickets. Sometimes they're walk up. What's the best way to get to be?
So either way works for this one. You can either call us or reach out to us on social media to get your tickets. Chaz is $20 for an autograph. We have some VIP tickets left that are $60, and they include a basketball, a picture with him, front of the line, things like that. And then Erica is going to be free to sign. So she's just going to kind of drop in, get your picture, autograph, and then Chaz, you can either pre-buy them or you can buy them at the door that day.
Would she let me think if I stop by wear that medal?
Maybe she's bringing it with her, so I don't know how protective she is of it. But if you took it, I think she might be able to run you down if you took off.
Oh yeah, there's no question. She could give me a huge head start, Caleb.
Zach, can you talk a little bit about, because I've been high on Chaz Lanier too, and he really was one of those players that just had kind of flew under the radar, and then out of the blue had a gigantic senior season after never averaging 20 points, after never averaging more than 5. Would you say that was because, did he have a growth spurt? Was it a development? So what exactly happened at the lower level that had him explode his final year?
I think a lot of times you have guys like him that they doesn't click till they get a little bit older. And I think it kind of all came together. I went to a smaller school for undergrad, so I saw a lot with for basketball players. You have a lot of these guys that I think their senior year, it finally clicks. Hey, this is my last year. I'm going to get in the weight room. I'm going to work on my shot, things like that. And I think it's just kind of one of those things that the offense they ran at North Florida last year, him, making that next step up. And I think a lot of these guys may have more drive and determination now in the world of NIL, because someone like Chaz thinks, hey, if I go have a great senior year, I'm either going to cash into the NBA or I can cash in at a major college. And so I think that was just kind of the perfect storm for Chaz, kind of like it was with Dalton a couple of years ago. Is just, finally clicked, physically and running the offense and all that kind of thing, and just finally got his chance to make an impact. And when he did, he took advantage of it.
Great stuff, Zach. Anything else that you would like to add?
Like I said, just reach out to us. You can call the shop, 865-688-2273. Reach out to us on Instagram, Sports Treasures TN, as well as Facebook on Sports Treasures. Get your tickets that way. Like I said, you can come in. We open at 10 on Saturday. So, party gets started about 11 to 3. If we can get everybody out and get ready for the UT football game Saturday night.
If you're a sports fan and then you walk in that store, there will literally be about a million things you want. There are over 5 million sports treasures. You'll want about 1 million of them. I go in there and I'm just like, this stuff's all awesome. Great stuff as always, Zach. We appreciate you more than you know, and nothing but the best to you and that fantastic crew there.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Good one, Zach.
Zach here with Sports Treasure. It's a great vibe there too. They'll have kids like opening cards like back in the day. Zach, thanks again. And you've got to check out Sports Treasures. Over 35 years right there in North Knoxville, and they're phenomenal. So you'll absolutely love them. Time for the last look. We saved the best for last, as I want to get to Cole Kubelik and his thoughts on Tennessee's offensive line. And his thoughts are that Tennessee's offensive line is very, very good. Let's pull up his comments. Last look and the last look post-game show brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. I don't have contacts nor glasses. That's thanks to LASIK. They also handle cataracts. So I want to get to what Cole Kubelik has to say about the Vols offensive line, and we'll do that right now on Off the Hook Sports.
See every play, even from the upper deck, with LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
All right, there he is, Cole Kubelik. What does he have to say about Tennessee's offensive line? This is going to blow you away because Cole played for Auburn, but he is the best at calling them like he sees them. What do you got?
But all in all, like, your offensive line played really physical football. They brought the fight, and your defensive line was out of control. Out of control. 55 was like a bowling ball. 20, 21 in the backfield. Even like multiple guys that we don't talk a lot about, like 97 was tossing guys around on the edge. Keenan Peely was knifing through, making plays, had a great block on the interception, by the way, hustling down the field. Some of the bigger bodies lined up outside. So, like, we all know about the pass rushers that are here, but the interior guys are the ones that were making some things happen in this game. And there was a gadget formation that got them. There's a couple misdirections that got them. But very rarely was it just kind of a straight-up play where NC State just beat them. It was all trying to fool them somewhere or another, get somebody out of position, and that's how they would go find their yards. So I thought all around it was a hell of a game by Tennessee. I was impressed.
Yep, there he goes. Cole Kubelik talking about Tennessee's offensive line. We've said it before.
And the defensive line that really stood out to him, too.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the defensive line, too. The thing that stands out to me is the number of names he mentioned. It's not that he said one guy. You know, it's not like he said, give me one. John Henderson just totally dominated, could not be stopped, took up 3 blockers, so it opened it up for other people. No, it wasn't that. It was this guy's winning the battle, that guy's winning the battle, that guy's winning the battle. In all reality, you can't double team James Pierce because he comes off the edge and it's tough to determine where he's from. But let's say like a guy like Tyree West that's a little bit more predictable in his pass rush direction. You could theoretically double team him. You could put a tight end on him or have a running back chip him every single time. But then that opens it up for somebody else. I mean, that's the thing. We talk about depth of rolling people in, but the other thing about quality depth, who do you double team, Caleb?
Oh, you can't double team anybody. And most importantly, and I don't think this is talked about enough, Tennessee has a level of versatility on their defensive lines, Dave, where if they want to do a 3-man rush and have their edge rusher be an outside linebacker, they can do it. If they want to do a traditional old school 4-down lineman with 2 tackles, they can do it. If they want to do the Nick Saban 3-down lineman with really 2 tackles in there and a nose tackle, they can do it. There's really not a style they can't do. There's not a way they can't line up. They have all the players they need. And it's also, if you keep doing stunts and mixes like that, lining up different ways, and you keep sending bodies at the offensive line, I mean, eventually the offensive line is going to get overwhelmed. I mean, you're just going to, you're constantly rotating bodies in and out. And the best way to slow down or neutralize what this unit does would be with the Josh Heupel offense, where you run tempo when you don't let them sub, because they sub a lot and they're not going to stop subbing. And if that were the case, if you did that, then Josh Heupel would just pull a Lane Kiffin and tell his players to fake injury so he could sub guys out.
Yeah, and I don't think we're overstating it at all to say that Tennessee has a solid 6 defensive tackles that can play. Is that overstating it?
All right, so we got Bryson Easton, Amari Thomas, and Omar Norman Lott are the main ones. And then we talk Jackson Moy, Elijah Simmons. That's 5 just straight in the middle. But then you have what we call your hybrid defensive tackles / ends. And that's where you get your Jason Jenkins, Dominic Bailey's, and Tyree West. And that's 8 right there. So, I mean, I can't disagree with you. And then we haven't even started with the edge rushers. Joshua Josephs, James Pierce, Jordan Ross, Hobbs.
Let me give you the difference between me and Caleb and some other people. some other people would be saying this to get you stoked because, I don't know, maybe they think it's good for ratings. But a lot of those guys, I mean, give me, let's take Jackson Moy, for instance. He's further down the depth chart because he's newer, okay? So he would have played a full half against Chattanooga to get him up to speed if they didn't think he was already up to speed. So what they're telling you by their substitution patterns is that they're all very competent at the position and even potent at the position. It reminds me of one of the greatest plays in college football history, and definitely one of the greatest plays in Tennessee football history. You know, Billy Ratliff was not supposed to be out there in the fumble, Caleb, that happened in the Arkansas game, the Arkansas fumble in 1998. Jeff Coleman was dog tired and said, "Get in there, Billy. I can't play." Billy blew up Brandon Burlsworth for the first time because he was fresh. Burlsworth handled Billy Ratliff. This is what Billy Ratliff said, not me. Burlsworth dominated the whole game, but you run a Billy Ratliff out there that is fresh and not technically a starter, although he's one of the most gifted athletes that Tennessee's ever had. Just injuries got in the way. That's what caused one of the greatest plays in Tennessee football history, and that very well could happen this upcoming season, Caleb.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that one specifically because, truth be told, the let's call it what it is. The star of that defensive line that year was Sean Ellis, right? Like Darren Walker was good in the middle, but Sean Ellis was the star of the line up front, wasn't he?
Agreed.
Corey Terry was actually really talented on the other side, but on the interior, they were rotating a lot of guys, and that's what gave them such an advantage. And I've talked to you guys about this before. I'll go to another one, 2001, obviously. And we talked about this with John the other day. Would you rather have John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth, or would you rather have 8 solid defensive tackles you could go to? And the latter, we all agreed, was the solid defensive tackles. And you know what, Dave? You tell me. Maybe we overreact. Maybe we haven't looked into the fact that maybe the reason Tennessee struggled with LSU in the SEC title game in 2001 is they really just ran John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth the whole time, the whole season. And maybe eventually Matt Malk just wore them down.
Well, good Lord, if you can come up with a reason for that fiasco, then good for you, because I still haven't. That's as good as any I've heard.
I mean, it's the only thing that the best rush defense in history can't stop a running quarterback.
Yeah, that, and I booked my tickets to the Rose Bowl at halftime when they came out, and they did an announcement. For those that don't remember the SEC championship game of 2001, Tennessee lost, should have won. Nick Saban beat them at LSU with LSU, and in the SEC championship game at halftime, they came out and they said, "We're here to report an injury," which they really don't do a lot. Rohan Davey and Brandon Tofield will not return to the field in the second half for LSU. What does Dave do? Expedia.com. Here we go. Let's book a place in LA, book tickets and everything. So that's my fault. It's either my fault or what you said. John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth were tired. I don't know what it is.
Or the one that they say.
Or the coaching.
Yeah, or because the coaches, I mean, the coaches have said this. People keep saying, well, you know, when Matt Malk came in, and I do believe that Matt Malk coming in, they weren't prepared. But as Jimmy Hyams pointed out, what is the not preparing for a quarterback draw? It's a quarterback draw. What analytical thing? What new idea do you got to figure out how to stop that? Hey, how about you tackle the guy when he runs? And so, but
Caleb, I'll tell you this. I don't know if it's Rodney Gardner, it's Tim Banks, or it's internal leadership, whatever it is. But when I was watching to do my Heisman column that's on Off the Hook Sports, and I've got Nico rated 3rd based off what they've done and what I think they will do. Teams defensively don't play like Tennessee across the board. I use the term a lot, hair on fire. That's how Tennessee plays. It's active. It's vertical. There are a lot of teams that sit back and watch. As a matter of fact, I could make an argument that Tennessee's defense, if you're a football aficionado, is every bit as fun to watch this year as their offense.
Oh, absolutely. That was a really fun defense to watch the other day. And
I always pick to write about Nico and whatever he does, basically, because I know that's what everybody cares about the most on our postseason columns. And by the way, we'll have the last postgame show brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn right after the Kent State game. But honestly, I just as soon sit back and write about the defense and chart plays. It's just, you kind of got to go into it with a plan. But I mean, I'll ask this question. I'm more excited about Nico or Vols overall depth. 85% of the people, I love our audience. You're so smart. Hit the like and subscribe button, guys, because I want you a part of it. Make sure the notifications on. Big stuff coming.
And
85% of the people say Vols overall depth. 15% say Nico. Kudos to you. That's the right answer.
For me, it's still Nico, but I just love watching a quarterback like Nico play. But
okay, but if you had would you rather have Nico and a C roster, or let's just put it like this, or would you rather have I was gonna say somebody that rhymes with Bo Hilton, but I don't want to get in trouble. Would you rather have an A+ roster with Gaston Moore?
Okay, yes, the A+ roster, but history bears this out. I mean, you had Peyton Manning with an A- roster and T. Martin with an A+ roster, and one of them won the national title. And so, I mean, I agree. Quarterback's a little more important now than they were back then, but still, I agree. And I wanted to tap into Cole Kubelik's point real quick, because, guys, I wanted you guys to understand this. Cole Kubelik with SEC Network, when I say talk ball, I mean, he's the guy you go to when you are looking for analytical breakdowns of blocking schemes that no one else in football does. No one else in football dives into those like boring minutia stuff that we like, that a lot of people wouldn't, that your average casual fan wouldn't like. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, Dave? Like, yes. Cole Kubelik gives that to you in a way that nobody else can. He studies it thoroughly. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is for him to actually be impressed by Tennessee's defensive line. He knows that NC State's offensive line is outmatched. He knows what Tennessee's in for with the SEC. But for him to still say they stood out to him, that means something. It means a lot more coming from him than it does almost anybody else, including any head coach, including Nick Saban. It means more coming from Cole Kubelik than anybody else to impress. Is that fair to say? I mean, that carries more weight because of the fact that his almost like his beat is covering defensive line and offensive line.
Agreed. Lastly, I just want to ask you this. You've heard of Nico's nickname, right?
Yes.
8 Ball. So, do you like the name 8 Ball? The nickname 8 Ball.
Sounds like cocaine.
Why did you say that? We learned a little something about Caleb Calhoun. I'm joking. Caleb's been a crime reporter. He knows what an 8 Ball is.
I know. I've covered. Yes. By the way, if you ever, I don't know if it was the same in Knoxville, but I can tell you, out in another, I covered crime in another region of Appalachia. Man, those stories are funny. I'm sorry when crime is your beat and you are going to cover crime every day and you're going to court, David. I'm sure you know your court reporter. They got to go to the courthouse every morning and they roll through the cases on the docket and they're like, "What's the most interesting story of the day that I could cover? That'd be a funny case." Man, you get some good ones. Guys.
Yeah. Do you like the nickname 8 Ball for Nico? 33% say yes. 67% say no. Do you have better? Do you have better suggestions on the message board? We'll give it a second. Jack says 8 Ball those for the day. Jack, don't do that.
8 Ball and MJG is one of the greatest rap groups of all time. They were the pioneers of Southern rap.
Don't know who that is. All right.
King from Memphis, Orange Mountain.
Okay, we got 60 seconds for you to give me a better nickname for Nico. On the message board, type it out right now, and we'll see if we can make it stick. You're talking to one of the inventors of the G-Gun. That and John Adams. We invented that. We're proud of it, and it stuck to the point that Dave Clawson, the offensive coordinator at the time, referred to his own formation as the G-Gun. So, the Slim Slinger. How about that?
The Slim Slinger. The Slim Slinger.
James says the Throwing Samoan.
The throwing Samoan, man. We love throwing race into our names, like we call Dalton the creamsicle Mamba.
How about the Big Nick?
Why? Oh, Nico. Wow. Okay. You know what?
He's Caleb Calhoun. I just think Nico's fine. Let's just say 9 balls in UT. Oh, let's say 8 balls in UT quarterback is historically not a great run. It wasn't a great run for a former Tennessee tailback either. All right.
Wow. Okay.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation. Hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell for notifications. We got big stuff coming up for Caleb. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.